NRA TV with Grant Stinchfield.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. You are looking at live pictures outside NRA headquarters just outside Washington, D.C. as a fake feminist march gets underway over a concocted, manufactured controversy that somehow the NRA is promoting violence and racism. Now, you and I both know that is lies. The leaders of the so-called Women's March called for people to show up there. There is probably certainly less than 1,000 people. I'm not even sure the numbers reach 500 people. But across the street there, from what you're looking at, they are speaking over loudspeakers. And if you can imagine, I am sure, because the Black Lives Matter group is involved in this protest, they are actually calling out police, disparaging the police officers there, the officers you see in the street, actually there to keep them safe. Par for the course, excuse me, from the liberal left. The hypocrisy of the liberal left is truly stunning. They manufacture a bogus claim that the NRA is pushing violent racist rhetoric. Nothing, as you know, could be further from the truth. It's all a lie. They know it's a lie. It's why they can't and won't respond to my challenge to give me one line that prompts racism or violence from any NRA video, not just Dana Lash's or mine or Colion Noir's, any of them. I, on the other hand, can give you plenty of examples of those on the left pushing violence, including the organizers of this manufactured fake feminist protest, calling for jihad against our president. But there is more. The so-called Women's March has even bigger and real connections to violence. Conservative political strategist Taylor McCarty just wrote a fabulous piece for the Washington Examiner titled "The Women's March, Hypocritical Shot at the NRA." Well, Taylor joins us now. Taylor, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And thank you for writing this article. It was fascinating to read because you really dug into the past of some of the people they invited to speak at some of their events. Why don't you take me through what you found?
So I think the one that everyone is most acquainted with was, of course, Madonna saying, "I thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House." That made a lot of headlines. But, of course, we also have Donna Hilton, who was arrested and sentenced to jail for kidnapping, torturing, beating, and raping a 64-year-old gay man in New York. And, of course, there was Angela Davis, who was not only the head of the Communist Party in the United States for a very long time, but was she was accused of and convicted of a violent courtroom overthrow that led to the death of a California judge. So they can say the NRA is violent and incites these sorts of violence as long as they would like, but it's hypocritical and it's simply untrue, and they are guilty of exactly what they are accusing the NRA of doing.
And these are people that speak at their events. And the last case you told us, she was somehow involved with stealing of the firearms that were used. Is that correct?
Yes, she stole the firearms that were used in the courtroom overthrow. So this is, of course, what they accuse the NRA of doing. We're lax on gun laws, that sort of thing, which, of course, you and I both know is not true. So it sounds to me like they're the ones who aren't law-abiding citizens.
No, and first off, I want to thank you for writing the article because,
Sure.
Look, the mainstream media isn't going to write an article like that. The Washington Examiner allows you to do it. We're grateful for that. I think there's a real problem in the mainstream media now pushing headlines that simply are just based in falsities about us being racist and pushing violence. There is no evidence of that.
No, absolutely not. You're completely right. And as far as, that's the left's favorite tactic, to call people any sort of ist, any IST at the end, racist, misogynist, sexist. That's their only tactic. So that just proves to me that they have no legitimate argument. So come to me with facts. Come to me with a real argument about why, you're trying to attack the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Americans, and then we can have a conversation.
All right, here's something they don't know about. It's called research. Clearly, a lot of research went into the piece that you wrote. As you started to expose this and find out all of the ties to violence, real, true ties to violence that these speakers at the Women's March had, what started to go through your mind?
Well, I unfortunately wasn't surprised at all because this is something that I'm very familiar with and something I'm very passionate about exposing. So when I saw this repeated history of condoning violence on their part, I felt like I had a responsibility to call it out because clearly they don't abide by the same moral code. So I'm not surprised at all, but of course this is the state of the modern feminist movement today, unfortunately.
As a woman today, What do you think about marches like this? They claim it's the Women's March. I've claimed it's a few Women's March.
I would agree totally. As far as the state of the feminist movement goes today, they made it explicitly clear with the original Women's March the day after the inauguration that women with right-of-center values, pro-life women, pro-gun women, were not welcome. And this is why the feminist movement has such a hard time getting women to call themselves feminists, because they refuse to expand the tent. They refuse to let women of opposite political ideologies to join their movement. Personally, I consider myself a feminist because I refuse to let them hijack the term. I believe in the social, political, and economic equality of women, but I also believe in the Constitution, which means that I also believe in every law-abiding American citizen's right to own a firearm if they so choose.
Well, I'll tell you, I stand side by side with you on all of that, Taylor. Do me a favor, stick around as we continue our coverage here. I want to bring you back in a moment, but first, I want to tell you about Dana Lash. So she exposes the radical agenda of the men behind the Women's March organizers, led by the father of the modern violent left. That's Louis Farrakhan. She urges, this is Dana, that is, she urges Tamika Mallory, Linda Sarsour, and Carmen Perez, all organizers of this Women's March, to be real feminists and stand up to the violence of men like Louis Farrakhan with a clenched fist of truth. That's how you stand up to people. Here's a portion of Dana Lash's newly released message.
Story I have yet to see the media cover: the violent agenda of the men behind these Women's March organizers. They include Islamic extremist Siraj Wahhaj, race riot insider Al Sharpton, and this man.
We'll tear this goddamn country up.
Yep, that's Louis Farrakhan, a religious terrorist whose highlight reel of bigoted beliefs includes, quote, Hitler was a very great man, end quote. This is the man behind the so-called peaceful, tolerant, and nonviolent Women's March organizers. The Charlie to their anarchist angels, father of the modern violent left, or Daddy Farrakhan.
Our brother, our leader, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Like the KKK, Farrakhan is an anti-Semite who incites hatred against Jewish people by spreading conspiracies. Like ISIS, he has preached that homosexuality is a crime that should be punished by death. Like a racist, he's incited division with statements like, quote, the white man is our mortal enemy, end quote. Like a xenophobe, he sows religious fears with propaganda claims like, quote, God will destroy America by the hands of the Muslims, end quote. Tamika, Linda, Carmen, how dare you accuse me of racism and sexism and homophobia and whatever the hell other ism or obia you've invented to push your radical agenda, or should I say Daddy Farrakhan's radical agenda?
Well, when you accuse Dana of being a racist, when they accuse me of being a racist, they accuse every single one of you, the 5 million members of the NRA. They accuse all of you of being racist. Why? Because they can, because they hate you. They will make up lies about all of you because you embrace freedom. Not like a guy like Louis Farrakhan, who may be one of the biggest racists there is in America today. That's who the Women's March take their cues from. Well, veteran Army Ranger and Frontlines correspondent Chuck Holton is in the middle of all of these protesters. Chuck, what are you seeing out there today?
Well, you know, the crowd is starting to dwindle a little bit. It's really hot out here. It's in the 90s. And matter of fact, they just had an ambulance and a fire truck show up. People are starting to fall out here. But, you know, I've been standing over there listening to the speakers that they've had, trying to keep an open mind and listen to what they have to say. The thing that strikes me, Grant, number one, they are very negative on the police. They're really calling out the police, really trashing the police over there. Meanwhile, all of these police are standing out here in the hot sun, protecting them from traffic. And that really gets me. Now, I asked some of the police what they think about that, and they said, hey, overtime is overtime, so we'll take it. But bottom line is, I think that the sense that I get here is that this march is more of a platform for every anti-ism and obia, like Dana said, than it is about the NRA. I mean, there's so much here about impeaching Donald Trump. There's so much here about gay rights. There's so much here about things that really don't have anything to do with the Second Amendment or with the NRA. but it's a convenient platform, and that's the best commentary I can give you on that.
Could you pan off to your right side and show us a look at some of the people on that side of the street and what they're doing? I see as some people move off down the street. I'm not sure, is that the march starting?
That's right. Yeah, the march is just getting started now, and it looks like the number of people who will be marching will be substantially lower than the people who were here earlier this morning. And it's hard to blame them because, like I said, it's really stinking hot out here. And we sure hate for anybody to die of heat stroke. That'd be really unfortunate.
Well, I can tell you, if they're already having problems out there and they haven't moved and they're needing to call the ambulance, I can only imagine what's going to happen after 17, 18 miles. It's going to be trouble for them. If I can, I want to bring back Taylor McCarty, who wrote a great piece for the Washington Examiner about the hypocrisy of the left. And there you see police officers protecting those folks. Taylor, what is your response when you see the cops out there doing their job, trying to keep everybody safe, and then we hear from Chuck that all they did was bash police officers at this protest?
I'm surprised, and my heart just breaks for the people who are out there working to protect them, to protect their First Amendment rights while they're trying to strip our Second Amendment rights. So just really grateful for the police for sticking it out in the D.C. heat and humidity. I'll be surprised if those women can make it 18 miles, so more power to them. But I'm just really grateful for our policemen who are in uniform helping these women practice their First Amendment rights.
Well, before I let you go, I hope that you continue to call out the hypocrisy of the left, Taylor, because the mainstream media is certainly not doing it.
Great. Thank you for having me. All
right, you got it. And Chuck, just lastly, before you go, are you going to be walking with these protesters for a little bit, or what's your plan now?
Yeah, I'll walk a little bit with them. One other thing I wanted to point out, though, is that I went over and stood near Linda Sarsour and some of the leadership of this march, and noticed that they have a large contingent of armed security protecting them, who are some very, very large men exercising their Second Amendment rights over there.
I'm sure.
Carry,
and so
carry weapons.
That's even more hypocrisy. They have armed security. We were looking just at a little video before of the Patriot Guard that's there, and there's Linda Sarsour playing up to the media in the box at the right-hand corner of your screen. That is the woman that called for open jihad against Donald Trump. And then again, Tamika Mallory with the media there just fawning over her, I'm sure, Chuck.
Yeah, so, it just goes to show the absolute hypocrisy, the absolute irony of the fact that they're out here protesting the NRA, which is the largest organization that fights for her right to have armed security, to have those guys there protecting her, and to be able to protect herself. And again, it's just a convenient platform for all these other anti-obia and isms that they're against.
Well, Chuck, great work out there. We appreciate it, as always. Keep up the good work. We will check back with you later in the morning as we continue our coverage of the so-called Women's March on the NRA. Again, a manufactured controversy. The only reason we cover it is because it is imperative that groups like ours, the NRA and NRA TV, expose these lies. Lies that the mainstream media will never try to expose. Lies the mainstream media will push upon all of you. It is our job here to make sure that that doesn't get away. We will continue to expose their lies and give you the truth every day right here on NRA TV. Our coverage continues at the top of next hour. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Thanks so much for watching.
You're watching NRA TV with Grant Stinchfield.